how have you got to this point? Where are you now in your adoption journey?
I am, like a lot of people, maybe I'm a bit of a procrastinator. So I just, had children. Mel and I ended up having 3 children, Ruby, Poppy and Llewellyn. And they can be quite distracting from life. They can distract you from your own navel-gazing activities because you have to do so much stuff to be a parent, right? So I sort of buried it while realising that family is amazing in a way that I hadn't quite realised before, and that's no disrespect to my parents and whatever. I realised how amazing family was, so it kept the thought alive in my head. But I was just sort of too busy, too busy, and I kept thinking I really must do something to explore, the possibility of my natural mother, my birth mother, being alive. Then along came Ancestry DNA. This is not an advert for Ancestry DNA. Along it came, and all my family got into it. They're just interested because it's fascinating. If you're from Britain, you could be a Viking, you could be French, you could be, any number of things, a whole range of other things. So everyone's interested in it. And one of my daughters, Poppy, said, "Look, Dad, there's loads of relatives of yours that come up on Ancestry DNA." And when that came up, I thought, okay, this is science or the heavens telling me that I must actually pursue this because there aren't any excuses. The technology is there, and I don't really have a border against doing it because having learned from the experience of Elaine and other people I know who adopted, I think I know the mistakes not to make, So it's really the technology made it easier, but it became, for me, an incredible journey.
So it's almost like the launch pad.
It was the launch pad.
Yeah.
To going from just thinking about it for decades to actually doing something about it. And even then I needed support of Poppy and friends who once they heard that I did have these relatives, these mystery relatives, on a screen, on a computer, they started digging on my behalf, to sort of urge me onto it.
Who are these people?
Like my ex-girlfriend Michelle, who lives in just north of Sydney, and we've always been very close friends. Who else?
So they, like, for you were thinking there are all these people on Ancestry DNA, but you don't know who they are. They're not names you recognise.
They're not names I recognise at all.
Yeah, so you're thinking...
They weren't from locations I expected. I had been told that my father was from Sydney and my mother's from Adelaide, and that my father was a few years, just 4 or 5 years older than my mother, who was about 18, 19 when she became pregnant. So I had that information from the start, which I probably should have mentioned earlier. Sorry. But
so did that, like, knowing that your birth parents were from Australia, was that another barrier in that, well, they're not here, they're not in my local neighbourhood, they're not as findable? Did that have influenced you not pursuing things or not?
Yeah,
not really?
Yes and no. I mean, it is a natural barrier, right? And it's natural barrier. But I did live in Australia for a few years in my 20s. And I did go to government offices in Australia, get the paperwork to find these people and my parents, and then I never followed through. So I think in my 20s, even though I knew I was in the right place, I still wasn't actually convinced. I was still worried that what I'd do is upset my my adopted parents, that I'd upset them unnecessarily and upset the people who gave birth to me, particularly the mother, who's usually the mother, isn't it? Upset her because she might have moved on with her life and not needed to be reminded of the past. And I was in a massive corridor of uncertainty. So I had the paperwork in my little flat when I was a backpacker in Sydney in 92, 93. And I couldn't quite make the leap.
And I think it's very natural to not want to hurt people that you inadvertently,
Because, the 4 people, my natural parents gave me the gift of life. My mother in particular must have suffered like heck. Gave me the gift of life, and the other 2 people, my adopted parents, brought me up and brought me up as their own. right? So they're the last people you ever want to hurt. And you think that by blundering into something, if there's a risk of hurting one out of those 4 people, it's, you know, and when you're young and you're not as worldly, that was the barrier for me.
Yeah. And things changed as you
Things
had your own
changed
children,
as I had my own children,
and Ancestry, and then
yeah. So the change in my head came with having children. I realised just what a profoundly big thing it was. A, to become a parent, and B, to see someone you love go through a really long labour to produce a child, and how hard that is, and what a big thing it is to do. So it moved me a lot, and it made me it opened me up a bit more. And then the Ancestry DNA thing came along, and made that path easier for a lazy person like me. It made it easier, but I was now more motivated because of being a parent. Yeah.